My name is Elizabeth Carter. I am 42 years old, and I built a real estate empire worth over $400 million. But none of that money could make my daughter speak. Sophie was 7 years old, and she had not said a single word since the accident that took her father 2 years ago. Doctors called it selective mutism brought on by trauma, and I had taken her to every specialist in the country, spending fortunes on therapy that never seemed to work. I had grown used to silence at home, the kind that fills every room and reminds you of everything you have lost. That afternoon, I had stopped at a small park near my office because Sophie loved the swings, one of the few places she still smiled. I sat on a bench nearby, scrolling through emails, when I noticed a man struggling to keep up with his son, a boy who could not have been older than 5, running wild and laughing near the fountain. The man wore a faded jacket and worn-out boots, and something about the way he moved, controlled and alert, told me he had once been a soldier. I later learned his name was Daniel Reyes, a former Navy SEAL who had left the service after an injury and was now raising his son alone, working 2 jobs just to keep their small apartment. I did not think much of him at first, just another stranger in a park full of strangers, until I saw my daughter get off the swing and walk toward him. My heart stopped. Sophie never approached anyone, not even family. She stood in front of Daniel, looked up at him, and asked if his son could push her on the swing too. 4 words. The first 4 words she had spoken in 2 years, and she said them to a man I had never met. I rushed over, tears already falling, and Daniel looked just as stunned as I felt, though he had no idea why. I explained through broken sobs that my daughter had not spoken since her father died, and he simply knelt down to Sophie's level and said that sometimes the people who understand quiet the best are the ones who have carried loud pain inside them. He told me he had seen things in combat that still kept him silent some nights, and that maybe Sophie recognized something safe in him, a stillness instead of a threat. We sat together at that park for hours while our children played, and for the first time since the funeral, I heard my daughter laugh. Over the following weeks, Daniel and his son became a quiet, steady presence in our lives, not because of my money or my name, but because he treated Sophie like a whole person instead of a problem to fix. He never asked me for anything, not a job, not an investment, nothing. He simply showed up, patient and kind, teaching Sophie that the world could still be gentle. Slowly, her words came back, one sentence at a time, until one evening she told me she loved me, something I had not heard in 2 years. I realized then that all my wealth had built buildings and closed deals. But it was a struggling single father with nothing but decency in his heart who rebuilt my daughter's voice. Daniel taught me that healing does not come from what you own, but from who shows up for you without expecting anything in return. Sophie still visits the park every weekend, and she still runs to find her friend, the quiet man who gave her back her words. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories, because every act of compassion deserves to be told.